Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside Tacoma. I'm your host, Randall Lewis. Our guest for our conversation today, City Council member Catherine Ushka. Welcome back.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
You're not the newcomer anymore, you're old hand, and so we're going to go right into the issues. So what's going on? You're the 4th district, which is sort of what people think of as the south end, but also some other stuff, Lincoln and some other places in the community. There seems to be, at least from my outsider's perspective, a lot going on in your little corner of Tacoma.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time for the east side south end of Tacoma, which is District 4. Just to put it in geographic perspective, it's south of I-5 to the eastern edge of the city, down to 72nd Street, over to McKinley, up to 56th, over to I-5, and then back up to the other part of I-5, if that makes sense. Okay. So there's a big L there. And if you go around the whole district, starting in that corner in the furthest northeastern corner, the Puyallup tribe is doing a lot of work in terms of building a hotel and an actual structural casino. And they're also a designated opportunity zone. I'll get back to that in a second. If you keep going down Portland Ave, we have the community center that we've been working on for the last 7 years. That's going to open this year, probably September, according to Parks. So we're really excited about that happening. Go down to 72nd, and there's some potential revisions to the multi-use zone there, and there's been some critical impacts of homeless camps down there around Kmart. So really working with the county to get unification of the way that we address services is going to be important moving forward. We're looking forward to bus rapid transit coming up the Pacific Corridor from just south of the Roy Y all the way into downtown Tacoma. So that of course will come right through the middle of 4 and 5. So there's some great, I think, opportunity there if it's leveraged correctly. And we have the Lincoln investment that you mentioned that also should be done in July at this point. And that's exciting. It's going to be very exciting for all the business owners there to finally have those streets cleaned up, as well as all of us that live around it. And it's going to be gorgeous. There's a second opportunity zone that's kind of saddling, I guess, Pacific Avenue from about 34th down to, I'm not really sure how far down, it might be 50th.
So let's focus on these opportunity zones for a while, because I don't think this is very well known, but part of the big tax cut package that passed Congress last year, tucked away in there somewhere, was the creation of opportunity zones, which is a place where the governor was able to designate so many places around the state, census tracts, essentially around the state, to be opportunity zones where they had to meet certain criteria for poverty. But if they did, then there was tax credits available for people who invested in that area in order to create jobs. I think that's the capsule description of the program. And Tacoma actually was successful applying for about 6 of these across the city, and all 6 got designated either by the governor or by the Puyallup tribe, which had a separate process that they could go through. Is that correct? And 2 of the 6 are in your district.
That's correct.
That's the summary. Okay.
Yep.
So
yep.
What do you now? Lincoln, and then the area around the Puyallup tribe's headquarters was the other one, as I understand. So what's it you hope to see that you think might come from this opportunity zone?
So that's yet to be seen. I don't know. I actually do know that the guidance for this came out really late in terms of when you needed to apply and what it was actually going to do. I can tell you that historically, places like opportunity zones, they were called enterprise zones.
Right.
It became
innovation zones.
Innovation zones, whatever the moniker was by the federal government, and however the guidance initiated, over a 20-year period it would change, but that zone would be the only place that you could use. So it was in my first few days of office that I was actually calling your office to find out more, to make sure we could get part of the east side on the map, which of course the city was already on top of. But hopefully it will bring investment dollars for new development that accentuates our neighborhoods, right, and creates more services and walkability, like any neighborhood wants. I think that we've seen less of that sort of development south of I-5 in the city of Tacoma, which is not really unique to urban environments where there's more economic challenge. And I want to note that I say economic challenge and not poverty as an intent, because I know that the poverty is the designator with the federal government and schools and others. But I think that poverty carries I think in our culture we tend to mean a moral judgment when we say that. And I think that the hardworking folks in my neighborhood that have economic challenge are morally A-okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly don't mean any.
No, I didn't mean
immorality.
it. I just wanted to.
That is the term the federal government uses.
I didn't mean.
I work in government too much that I speak federal government-ese sometimes. But anyway, but as I understand it, something like what the city had previously done, even before the Opportunity Zone program was created, the city had made the decision to invest a lot of money in the Lincoln District in terms of upgrading infrastructure and fixing utilities and the streets and the sidewalks and a variety of other things in that area, which is now underway. And that's the kind of investment by the local government that this program is designed to leverage with some private tax incentives.
Absolutely.
So Lincoln may be really primed for that. And the other place in your district that the tribe designated their own headquarters area, and certainly the investment they're making with the casino, the hotel, and the parking structure. I mean, I think people drive by and wonder what the heck that is that's being built over there. Is another opportunity because money's already been spent that now this program can leverage.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it looks like those are two areas where that's really likely to happen. And let's focus on the tribe for just a second. They are the largest employer in your district, significant economic presence in the community overall. And it took a while even for me to realize what that thing that they were building there with 3 cranes, I think, in the air now, was more than just a parking garage. I mean, that would be the world's sturdiest parking garage from just the looks of it. So I did finally find out that no, that's actually the casino and the hotel. So finally the tent casino is going to go away after all these years.
Absolutely. Honestly, I didn't realize that it was actually a tent until recently. And it's going to be an impressive building, and it's going to be great for the whole area.
Yeah, I mean, because casinos are big job creators, and people certainly, as evidence in Washington State indicates, people do like to go to casinos and not have to travel all the way to other states to do so. So this will be great. A lot of economic opportunity for the tribe. So do you have meetings with tribal members or tribal council members, or how does a council member from the district where the tribe's base is actually located, how do you interact with them?
I guess like you would interact with anybody else, if that makes any sense. Okay. The mayor and I have been to tribal council once just to have some discussion over primary issues. A lot of the residents in the 4th District are tribal members, right? So being aware of what their specific concerns are, and also being respectful of the sovereignty of the nation, are things that are important. I feel like we have a sovereign nation in the middle of our city, and we fail to celebrate that. So I'm looking forward in part to that redevelopment, so that when you get off Portland Avenue, Tacoma, you know you're in the Puyallup tribal nation. That's significant and it's meaningful, and I'm looking forward to how we build that to be more of an integrated part that we respect versus just something that's there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's kind of been interesting over the years that I've been with the city since the tribal land claim settlement went into effect just before I started here, and changed the dynamic about how we interacted with the Puyallup tribe when that went into effect. And they are the sovereign nation. They are a government. We treat them as a government, but they're a government that doesn't have to meet the same standards we meet as a civilian, non-tribal government. Public meetings laws, the Washington State's public meetings laws don't apply to the Puyallup tribe. Mm-hmm. The Public Records Act of Washington State does not apply to the Puyallup tribe. And sometimes elected officials from governments, the non-tribal governments, have trouble figuring out how tribal governments are different than city governments. They aren't the same. They are not our equals. They're completely different circles that they operate in.
Absolutely, it's a sovereign nation, and they can run their nation the way that they choose to.
Right.
And so it's, how would you behave if you were in another country? You would ask, and you would be respectful, and you would go from there. And that's how we should treat everybody, quite frankly. Right. But more specifically, when you're working with tribes anywhere, I think. Yeah,
very true. Not just the Puyallups, but tribes everywhere. Tacoma's relationship with the tribe is a little different than places elsewhere, because we also have this land claim settlement, which is federal law that governs how we have to act and respect and treat them, which is kind of puts into code what we should be doing anyway, but clearly prior to that weren't. Mm-hmm, so anyway, moving along to other places in your district that I know that you mentioned the 72nd and Portland Avenue area. That's a former Kmart. Tacoma is not unique amongst cities that are dealing with former big box stores, particularly Kmart stores. They're all gone now in Washington State. How do you redevelop a place like that? Even if you're not having homeless issues, how do you redevelop a giant parking lot with a big box empty store on it? It's a challenge that no community has quite found the answer to yet.
I think that you have to look for incentives for people to want to develop in those areas, right? Whenever you are looking at that sort of thing too, you have to make sure that you have the volume of customers that are going to go there and spend money. That's true for any vendor of anything. So those will be important factors. I am going to claim a little bit of, I'm only 6 months in on this one, on how do you actually get it done. So been working with the Economic Development Department, but as you know, they've got some transition. We brought in a new director, or the city manager did recently. So we're looking forward to seeing how they can really focus on a different level of recruitment than we have in the city of Tacoma previously. And so I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the issue, you mentioned the neighborhood community center, which is amazing to me that it's going to open this year after all the years we spent working on it. Though in terms of government, even that was a relatively short period of time. That was due to the wonderful activism of the community that pushed that thing to reality faster than government normally operates. And so that its opening this year is a true testimony to them and the others who came along with them on that great journey. But that's just the latest in a series of investments that have occurred in the East Side. Salishan was one of the largest redevelopments of housing in the nation when it occurred. Seems to clearly be a success story. New schools, which you had some hand in when you were on the school board. There's been a lot of public investment in the East Side over the years.
Absolutely, and you also see a lot of private investment in terms of housing developments and infill housing, which is relevant because it both beautifies our neighborhood but allows greater housing access through all areas of the market. Similar to that area, and I have to mention this because I'm an avid cyclist, or maybe at this point I should call myself an avid cyclist, trying to be, versus where I was in my 20s. But we recently passed the funding that will pay for the bike trail completion. For years we've been talking about how to connect the mountain to the sound and bike trails. And the Tacoma portion goes through the east side, kind of down towards the community center and up to 40th, where it will connect to other bike lanes and then downtown. And so all of that's supposed to be completed by 2019. Part of the reason I'm excited about that is because it's a multi-use trail. It's not just for bikes. So as we're building a new community center, it gives a pedestrian pathway that pretty much goes right to the source. And that's, it might be happenstance, but I'm glad it's all coming together in that fashion. So I'm looking forward to, when that opens, being able to do some inaugural walks and rides so people can see how easy it is to get to and use that community center.
And one other little piece that I just happened to notice the other day was finally coming back together is Mckinley Avenue. It has been kind of chopped off from the rest of Tacoma for a while as the perpetual widening of I-5 continues, but apparently that's coming to an end. They've actually going to start laying the beams across the freeway again, so maybe by the end of the year, early next year, the Mckinley will be open again.
You're talking about the D Street Bridge that connects us to downtown. Yeah. I don't think that there's anybody in the South Sound that hasn't been impacted by a bridge closure someplace, but since that one literally cuts us off from the rest of the city, it's been a big deal. No, I believe it's going to be 2020 last time I heard. Oh. I could be wrong, and maybe it's 2019. I don't think it's this year. I wish it were. But McKinley Hills has seen a lot of great things happening. You know that the Top Tacoma has been there for a while. Yeah. There's some artist lofts that are live, work, and work, live. They're being developed and rented soon. And the farmers market has moved from Salishan to the McKinley area.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that's pretty exciting. It's one of the only evening markets in the city of Tacoma. It runs on Tuesdays from 3 to 7, which makes it nearly impossible for me to get there because it's council day.
Right.
So if you see me at the Dias with some radishes or raspberries, you know it's because I was shopping along the way. But so come on down. There's still plenty of routes to get to McKinley Hill, even though D Street isn't up yet.
That seems like a better location. I mean, McKinley is sort of one of those great old neighborhoods of Tacoma, one of the original old neighborhoods of Tacoma. It's still got a lot of the old bones of the old buildings and the things that make a place really an urban community. Still all there, and it's a great little walkable neighborhood place. It's kind of a perfect spot for a farmer's market to be.
Yeah, and if you've ever been to the McKinley Hill Festival in August, it's a really great place to walk around, absolutely. It sets up well as a festival. I don't know, and I think we have fabulous neighbors, so it's even more fun. And it was in Salishan previously, and Salishan is a great investment. It's got the multi-use, so it's got owners and THA residents. It's nationally acclaimed for its success, and that investment has absolutely spurred other investment. And there's lots of good resources that continue to go into Salishan, including the opening of a bank branch later this month. That's going to be fantastic.
Okay.
Heritage Bank is coming in. So I'll be looking forward to being there. But seeing items like the farmers market come to other neighborhoods like McKinley is absolutely vital, because we need to make sure that as we're doing investment and we're creating change, we're not just concentrating in one area of the east side. It needs to be all of the east side and south end. So as we talk about that opportunity zone and the Lincoln district, and we didn't mention it, but the bus rapid transit that will be going from just south of the Roy Y to downtown, there's some great opportunity to create some synergy throughout the district that I'm really looking forward to. I've been very excited to be able to work with a couple of my council members that live south of I-5 so that we can really focus on issues of our areas that are not normally addressed as highly. And part of that for me is going to be really looking at how do we create cross-district transportation. If we look at the whole city of Tacoma, it doesn't matter where you are. Many of our Pierce transit systems are really based on a then logical system of how do you get from wherever you are to either downtown or further transit to leave town. You know, I think we're finally evolving enough as a city to really look at how do we get from one part of the city to another part of the city in a useful way. So you could get on the bus to go to dinner, for instance. We don't have that now, but I think BRT will help us build greater opportunities with our partners.
I want to talk about BRT because this is a major investment. This is a Sound Transit 3 investment. It's not light rail, it's bus rapid transit, which is supposed to be very much like light rail, but not with the fixed rail. Therefore, a little quicker and easier to get installed and up and running. But I don't know if people understand the difference between it, because there's buses running on Pacific Avenue now. I mean, it's route number 1. It runs on Pacific Avenue. Heavily used Pierce Transit route. So can you explain to us the difference between just replacing route number 1 with a BRT?
Probably not as well as somebody from Pierce Transit, but I'll do my best from my perspective. I did have the opportunity to join Pierce Transit and others and go up to Snohomish and see their BRT. And there is a video that really talks about what it looks like. So with BRT, it's faster. There's dedicated, what exactly they'll do down the corridor is part of what we're working out now. But there can be dedicated lanes and there can be shared lanes, depending on what you can and can't move in an area to make it work, if that makes sense. Right. But the average stop is something like 26 seconds or something versus the 5 minutes you might see now. And again, my numbers for their stop times aren't accurate. Pierce Transit can be accurate, so it's a lot quicker when it stops. The buses tend to be the 2 buses that are connected.
Articulated buses.
Articulated buses, thank you, and they have doors that open on the sides like sliders, so you're kind of coming in and off more like you might on a subway.
It's right
and
off
there's
of
no
platform.
steps. They meet right directly to the platform. All of that saves time, and it's actually safer for everybody than it would be otherwise. Items like where to put a bike or how to be seated as a handicapped person with a wheelchair, all of these things have been really thought out, so they're quick and convenient both for the person that's there and everyone else, so that the ride can continue along.
All right, so and then they have signal authorization, so if they come to a red light, the buses can trigger the red light, as I understand it, and so they keep going. They have priority over regular traffic.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, so that, and then it's like every 15-minute kind of a run or something. Well, I mean, nobody knows for sure yet, but it's something like that.
It should run much more frequently than the current bus service, and that's absolutely vital. Like Route 1, they've selected that because it is the busiest route that they have in Pierce County. So. Okay.
And then it'll run somewhere down to the Tacoma Dome station, where everything runs, and then head to Pacific and out all the way to the Roy Y. That is a long way.
It's actually a little bit further than the Roy Y, but yeah, it is. It is a long way. I think it creates a great opportunity for us to work more closely with the county, both on jobs and economic development, and really look for vital services that we might be able to create all along that corridor through Tacoma and beyond that aren't really there now. Things like adequate grocery stores. You know, how many dry cleaners are there? They're simple things. You know, they're things that we all assume are everywhere, but they really aren't. So when you build those conveniences, you build a different quality of life for folks when they don't have to go as far out of their way.
Well, I want to get back to the bank because one of the things that's been consistent with people who've represented the 4th District who've been on the show over the years that I've done this show is one of the things that kind of consistent theme is the use of the word desert to describe either lack of financial services in the east side because the bank branches all closed through consolidations or whatever reasons that happens, and the grocery stores. There was a food desert and a financial desert in the east side, and your predecessors have all talked about how do we got to fix that. That you don't realize how vital that service is until you don't have it in your neighborhood. And so the fact that Heritage Bank is opening a branch in the east side is a really good thing. And now there is a grocery store, right, at Pacific and 38th and Pacific. Isn't there a Albertsons there?
No, you're thinking of about 38th and maybe it's right in there, 38th and Pacific. It's a 24-hour fitness now.
Oh.
Yeah, so the Albertsons.
Well, that's the growing retail trend now. I've heard is fitness centers. So.
Right. So there's still absolutely a food desert.
There is a
so
food
we're looking
desert,
at a building food innovation zone. Looking forward to how that frames out. We worked with Cityr and had some master students from UW and UW-T work together on some ideas of what we could do. They came up with their final projects in the end of May, and they're looking at putting together a collaborated report, and then we'll go from there and really framing out what that means. But if we can think of food innovation, in my mind, when I think of food innovation, if we can go up that corridor, and first we need to celebrate that the tribe is there and acknowledge that. But I live in a very diverse community, and when you drive through the east side, you don't know that. I mean, for instance, it's the third largest population of Cambodians in the United States is in the east side of Tacoma.
Really?
And being able to have, I don't know, I want to say public cultural designations of some sort, but really if you can build a food economy when you're starting with something from whether it's micro farmer markets all the way up to maybe PhD food sustainability research, I dream big, we can really change the way that we look at the east side. I also think that if we're thoughtful about it, we can help build and stabilize economies that ensure that as we grow as a city, the people that live and are part of the east side continue to be so and grow there and stay in place versus being fully gentrified, which is a battle that any urban environment has. I think that based on the kind of work that we get to do because of the food innovation, we have a fighting chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to address another side issue to this because people sometimes, when you hear about food deserts or financial deserts, people respond frequently, well, in this modern technology economy, everybody does their banking online. You have delivery services for groceries that you just order on your smartphone. But we learned this lesson several years ago when people had thought Uber and Lyft were the answer and we didn't need these dinosaur taxi cab services with their medallions and all that kind of regulation from government anymore. And I think a lot of us learned that isn't true. We do live in this amazing technology world, but that technology does not extend everywhere, even in an urban community like Tacoma. There
Correct.
are people who really don't live that world.
There's a digital divide that's very real, and then there's a service divide. Just because those services exist in North Tacoma doesn't mean they exist as fully in East Tacoma, for instance. You also have language barriers that are real. There are communities that are that haven't been here that long, right? Mm-hmm. And so that becomes all the more challenging. And then there's levels of trust. That being said, if you look at delivery, it generally costs more. You're not selecting your own food. Somebody else is doing it for you. I've done it. I know that the tomatillos that I received are not the ones that I would have chosen from the bin. It's important to me to be able to go and choose what I'm going to serve to my family and what I'm going to eat. So that access isn't just about nutritional sustainability, although it is. It's nutritional sustainability of foods that are good for us, but it's also, that access of what we do in community when we're talking about food. What are the points where we build social capital, right? It's running into somebody in the grocery store and finding out that your kids are in the same ball game so that you can ride share. So now you have more time to invest in maybe volunteering in your neighborhood. If you don't have those opportunities and access points, you don't have the opportunity to build that social capital. So the community center and the food innovation zone, quite frankly, give a great opportunity for that. Now, personally, I think that food is awesome. One day I'm going to write a book about dumplings of the world because every culture has one, but that's besides the point. When we eat, when we share a meal, we have a different level of communication and kind of cultural exchange regardless. So the opportunities that we have as a community to really kind of grow in strength of our diversity instead of living beside each other is also tremendous.
Okay. And we got just 2 minutes left, so
Yeah.
but I have to hit this because of your former role on the school board and the fact that we just finished a school year and there's these flags flying around Tacoma with 89 on them. A lot of people don't realize exactly what that means. That's the graduation percentage of the Tacoma Public Schools this year, 89%. You were there to help lay the groundwork for that. That's a pretty remarkable achievement.
I am so honored to have been a part of that group, and I'm so I have undying respect for everybody in the school district. You know, when I started on the school board back in 2009, it was a 50% graduation rate. Yeah. And so looking at an 89% 5-year graduation rate, which means for those students that needed a few more credits that did it by the 5th year, it's still higher than it was last year for the 4-year one too, is amazing. TPS has exceeded their 2020 goals by far at this point, and it makes a huge difference for the whole community, right?
Absolutely.
Now we have an expectation that everybody succeeds instead of something else, and that's huge.
Yeah, well, again, congratulations, and thank you for being here today. It's been great talking with you again.
Thank you very much.
Our guest has been City Council member Catherine Ushka. We look forward to seeing you next time here on Inside Tacoma.